Hello, everyone, and welcome in another podcast. I am not gonna lie, today's guest is probably the biggest one I've had since the beginning of the podcast. So, Krystian Vaaga. Hello.
Thank you, David, for having me on your show.
If I say your name, surname, and probably a third name, I don't know correctly.
More than good enough. Ole Krystian
Oh,
Vaaga. That's it. Yes.
okay, great. I've always thought that you are Oleg, just
I just
because.
I just shorten it and write Ole K. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah, just because that. I've always thought it's Oleg. Okay,
yeah.
so today, like we always do with the coaches on a high level, we're gonna speak about the building the perfect competitor. So, I spoke before the podcast because before I hit the record with Ole, we're gonna get through the off season today, but don't worry, everyone's gonna get the information about the contest prep as well, but in the future. So today we're gonna assume that I am your new client. I am currently on the heavyweights class, so like a 102 kilo weight class, and
Yes.
I wanted to get to the open, and I am basically after the show. So let's assume that my body fat level is decent,
Yes.
just to not
As,
make it
as,
overcomplicated.
as long as it's below 15% approximately in body fat, then we know how the conversion from testosterone to DHT compared to estrogen is, etc. So like it gives us a good indication that your lean is always a favorable situation, also with insulin sensitivity.
Let's say I'm like approximately 8% of body fat.
Perfect.
I'm weighed like a 102 kilo. And basically, we're gonna start right here, and you're gonna we're gonna get through all my question, and we're gonna
Yes.
build me up until my next show to be competitive in the open class. Okay.
Sounds good.
So how you set up the training during the off season for a guy like this?
Well, first of all, do you come straight from a show now? So you're still in the rebound phase.
Let's say it like that, yeah.
Okay, so because you said we were going to do the rebound left later, but in general, for you right now, when you're in that rebound phase, I always found it beneficial to keep the androgenity fairly low, but you can keep the anabolic part fairly high, and you will have less toxicity, you will have less health issues related to the androgenity that comes along, etc. But you will still be in a state where you're so anabolic from the excessive food that you're eating, especially if you increase the proteins more than what you would consider within normal range and still keep the fat fairly low. Because we see that when you're in a post competition state, like in a rebound that you're now, the amount of proteins that you can utilize is far greater than in an off season state. Insulin sensitivity is improved. You have a lower body fat. You have a better conversion rate from testosterone to DHT. DHT affects the protein synthesis, the metabolism again, and also the neurological aspects. Better firing, better activation. So you have all those parts that comes into play in the state you're now. So by manipulating the body into believing it's in a massive calorie surplus when it's actually not, because we only trick the body to believe so by having high protein, high carb, so that you can utilize the nutrition more efficiently compared to off season. So the window you're in now is a very good place to be when you come to adding lean body mass, because your body is just so depleted that it will absorb pretty much anything and you will grow from that itself. So what I would do in this state is one thing to increase the protein a lot higher than you actually would think you need. There's recent studies that came out that actually debunks the whole theory about that too high protein intake causes higher liver enzymes, etc. Because we see that yes, it will if you have high protein intake over a short period of time that's much higher than you normally had. But if it's progressively increased over longer time, we don't see that. And we see also on the latest study that came out now that people that was eating a high protein diet compared to those that was eating a lower protein diet but more processed food had more shitty values in general for the liver. So there's many factors that it's because of that, but the processed food itself, you know, all nutrients are stripped out. Yes.
You mean kidney or liver? Because I would never heard before that protein impacts the liver.
No, kidneys.
So yeah,
Kidneys.
okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clear it out.
Yes. So high protein intake, and by that I mean if you're lean 102 kilo now, you will be in a much better position if you have around 4 grams per kilo than 3. But you won't notice much difference if you have 4 grams per kilo in an off-season state compared to 3 grams. But you do notice a difference when you're in the state you're currently in now. And we also see that the higher the protein intake, actually the higher metabolism itself, because you're increasing the protein synthesis. And if you're then having a pretty high carb but low fat, you're utilizing the carbs a lot more efficiently for the high intensity training that you have in the phase here now. And since we have the protein so high, if you were to deplete, you can have glycogenesis. You have the excessive proteins that the body doesn't need that you ate the day before that's floating around in your body, the nitrogen balance, you know, amino acids. That is not being used to recover the muscles that you damaged in the workout the next day, can be used as glycogen through glycogenesis. So, but the calories are actually less because if the excessive protein that you've been eating is not being utilized for rebuilding purposes, but instead used for energy, you will have to go through that step of glycogenesis. So the calories is actually less. Plus you increase the protein synthesis. So even though on paper you might think, oh shit, this is a lot of carbs and calories in general after a diet compared to what I ate on the diet. But what you actually see is that you don't accumulate almost any fat afterwards. As long as you keep the fat intake fairly low, the insulin sensitivity kept high, carbs high, high intensity training, protein also high, you just see that the body just absorbs everything much better, and you utilize the nutrients much better. So that's the first thing I would do for nutrition for you. And of course, most of it from whole foods. Try to eat as clean as possible, but also have that twice a week where you have the optional food in one meal. Because no matter how well balanced your diet is, you're always going to be lacking some nutrients. You're always going to have deficiencies from some fat sources or some. Let's say you never eat fish, and then at least have then fish like twice a week. Let's say you almost never have any red meat. Then of course, if you have them twice a week, that additional meal that has, you know, saturated fat, you have all these other nutrients inside the red meat, iron, phosphates, etc. So it's not just to look at it on carbs, protein, and fat. You got to look at the whole picture from a nutrient perspective. So it's a little bit more complicated, and for that, you know, we need to look at every single meal, your blood works, how we should possibly manipulate your body into growing the best possible. For training in this state, in general, always like keep intensity high, keep the metabolic stress high, but keep the periodization not too long so that you get to that state where you deplete, you don't fire that well, then you need to deload. And that I noticed happened maybe in week 3, 4 after a competition in a rebound. Just train lighter for like a week, half the volume maybe, and then you continue for 2, 3 more weeks, and then you do deload again, and you have a cleaning phase, and then you can start the off-season phase part 1.
Okay, yeah. Let's clear 2 or actually 3 things here.
Yes.
What do you mean saying intensity? Just because in the general like a hypertrophy culture, intensity is just like a amount of reps in reserve, let's say it like that. So the intensity increase closer to the failure point, yeah. So that's the intensity. But some guys, if they train fast, they told that is intense. You know what I mean, yeah.
Neurologically and muscle intensity.
Okay.
So a cluster set, for example, we have 15 reps, break 20 seconds, 10 reps, break 20 seconds, 5, 6 reps. It's high intensity. And then 2, 3 minutes break, and you do the second cluster set, and you're done with that exercise. That's one way of having high intensity. You have all these other methods that you can use as well.
Some guy will say that isn't an intense set, like Jordan Peters, for example, because for him that's like a volume training, not intensity. So this is why I ask, because the amount of glycogen you're gonna burn is a far different if you do like a top and back off set, and that's all. And like intensifiers, when you go to the 6 failure points and then you go do 3 more sets of that and stuff like that. So this is why I wanted to clear it out for the people, because the intensity is like a word that is fairly abused. And many people just don't know what it means. Like Jay Cutler intensity versus like let's say who was that, like Brent Warren, that's the different intensity.
But again, it's the same end result, and that's causing a high intensity stress on the muscle.
Of course, but you are the boss here, so I wanted to know what I would do.
Well, that's what I would do, and I see that. So, for example, on compound movements in this periodization, you have 1 cluster, 1 back off, and you have 2, 3 more exercises where you have like 2 sets each tops. So the quality in each set is high, and the intensity, like we said, the amount of effort close to failure is high, but you don't have a high volume. You have, for example, for quads, you have a total of 6 sets. You don't have 15, but then the set themselves are intense up to the failing point. And if you have a cluster there, maybe you have 1 or 2 clusters in the whole quad workout, that is very high intensity for neurological and muscle stimulation. So that is what I've seen works best. And there's also a lot of other research that come out lately now where we see that training with a higher metabolic stress, SST, FST, clusters, whatever it is, we see also that the androgenic receptor sensitivity increases. So you're utilizing the androgens much more efficiently compared to if you didn't train that way even.
But I didn't know that.
No, it's brand new. It's like came out like a couple of months ago.
I never heard about it.
But it makes sense.
It makes sense. It
makes sense. It makes sense. Because you're activating by training with training with high intensity in general, you also increases the amount of satellite cells, which is like the male offices, so you have a better cross network intramuscular between each cells with these satellite cells. And then, of course, when you increase the intensity, the cells needs to be amplified, needs to be more of them. But then, of course, as the sensitivity itself for androgens also increases. Why exactly? Not sure. Can't find any papers on it that shows exactly what's happening. We don't know.
And if they come out, they're probably going to change in the next 10 years 5 times. So that's not really like a matter, to be honest. Just because bodybuilders just make it happen like 30 years ago. They just figure it out. Okay, so you've basically told me about the diet. So I just wanted to clear out, because you told me 4 grams for the kilo of body mass.
In this period you're now, yes.
Yeah, in this period. But how do you count them? Only from the meat sources, or you counted everything? Yeah, so it's probably going to be like a 500 to 550 if your carbs are fairly high.
It depends on what you're eating of the other sources. I don't have a lot of proteins in the other foods that I eat. And almost nothing. Like, do you count the proteins if you have 150 grams of oats in a day?
No, I don't. But if people just gonna count it from the applications like MyFitnessPal, it's probably gonna go about 100 to 150 grams of protein more than you assume. So this is why I ask. Because some people just think that 400 grams of protein or 300 grams of protein, and they eat like 50 grams of chicken and like 200 grams of pasta, and
Yeah.
that's okay. Yeah.
No. But you also have to keep in mind also with proteins, proteins and their sources defines how the bioavailability defines how much is being absorbed. So if the proteins that you have that you don't count comes from grains or less bioavailability, maybe 60, 70% bioavailability, you're not utilizing those proteins either way. If you eat 50 grams of peanut butter, yeah, you have some proteins there, but what's the bioavailability? 60%, 70 maybe, max?
Yeah, but there's comes the complementary of the amino acids. So theoretically, you can combine a few sources of protein and make it happen. But let's be
Yes,
let's be real.
complicated.
Yeah, that's too complicated for a meatheads like us.
No. Just eat, count the meat and so for meat and the egg and the protein powder and even the EAA, count those. But from rice and oats and those type of things, no, don't
Yeah,
count.
I am the same. So I'm totally with you. So if a normal, if we get to the consideration the normal phase of the building mass, so like
Yes.
off season, the proper off season, it would be like 3 grams per kilo. Yes,
I would say
three
three
and a
grams
half.
if you don't count anything. But
Okay.
then again, it depends. If you're in a very intense training 6 week period, that you're also using high androgenicity and you're also having high GH and high insulin usage, which you need to step up to the different weight class,
Of course.
then most likely you're going to be in a similar state that you're in a post competition as long as the body fat is kept low. And then you would still need that high protein intake. I still firmly believe because I noticed difference in myself. And you can ask probably already most of the people you talked with, they tried the 3 grams per kilo body weight and they noticed a better development if they had 4.5, even 5.
Yeah.
So
I am a lover of the high protein, so you didn't have to tell me twice. But what about those guys like Stefan Kinsler, like a Bows of Outlaw and Patrick Tour and guys like this? Because it's more commonly seen that the top coaches are keeping the protein fairly low. Like Martin Fitzwater says that he eats like a 175 grams of chicken raw to each meal, and I'm assuming that he has 6 meals, so it's probably I don't know 250 grams of protein or something like that. So
yeah,
it's
but we don't know how many shakes he has besides that, if he does.
I don't think he has any shakes.
No, I don't know.
He has any shakes. I don't know either, but
No,
but
because I see a lot.
he told that he was basically scared when he saw the plan from the Stefan for the first time. So
Yeah.
so
No,
this is why I
I try
wonder.
to. You try to lower protein
No,
intake?
I never tried the lower protein intake.
I
Never.
tried, and honestly, um, have you seen the latest research? It came out a year ago where they did um, purely carnivore and also purely vegan, and then they looked at the nitrogen balance with the same amount of protein intake.
No, I
Okay,
don't.
so long story short, so what they did, they took two groups, vegan and
Meat eaters.
carnivores, and they
Yeah.
were measuring exact same amount of proteins, not taking into consideration the bioavailability, but the same amount. So people were eating 200 grams of protein, but from completely different sources. And
Yeah.
what we saw because of the bioavailability was that those that was vegan or had the vegan diet, they had a negative nitrogen balance. That means they were in a deficiency for
Yeah.
rebuilding purposes, even though they had the same amount of grams of protein as the carnivores. So that we know for a fact that it's a little bit bigger the picture on how we should view the amount of proteins being eaten. If the bioavailability is 100% and you have all the other nutrients, like you said, Martin, now you said, was it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It has
Martin.
250. That maybe worked for him, but I tried myself and I got that also that look, that a little bit like depleted look. And I was still eating the same carbs and fat and didn't change anything, but I could see that my recovery wasn't as good. by eating like 260, 70 grams of protein compared to eating 450.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I believe in high protein very much. So
Yes.
I don't know if you know, but I work with a Luki.
Yes, I know.
You are friends with Luki. So
Yes.
yeah. So and I've basically even asked him if maybe we are gonna raise the protein, but he says, David, stop complicating things like always, because I'm a very very hard to live with clients. So
No, no, keep it simple. Now we're complicated things a little bit, but also we need to give a
yeah, of
background story
course,
to why we're doing like we're doing.
yeah. This is what I told my clients as well. But when it comes to yourself, it's not that easy.
No, no, it's not.
Too many thoughts in your head. It's climbing time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the protein we have it, but uh, how much fat you like your guys eat in the off season? Because you told me that in the rebound phase you keep the fats very low, and I probably assume that the off season is the same as we basically no need many fats in our diet. But want to know your opinion.
For a guy, depends on your metabolism in general. If you're a guy and you're already 102 kilos, like you in your case, if you have struggles adding mass because you can't eat enough food, then at some point, and you're still lean, you can't add much fat, then at some point you have to add, fat in your diet. But it doesn't work that well for me and the people I've coached. Men, women, yes. Men, no. Why exactly? Can't really tell.
I think that is because the fats basically fucked up the insulin sensitivity and cholesterol values. Because I saw it on my clients and myself, and when I have a higher fats diet, my cholesterol is basically higher.
Yes.
So it's normal, and they actually prove, and even right now for the diabetes people, they tend to not cut the carbs but fats,
Yes.
especially those who trans fats and processed foods and stuff like that, because the fats and the lipids in general have like a negative impact on the insulin sensitivity at the first place.
Yes.
People think
Indeed.
it's carbs just because I don't know. It's like a carbs culture over the in the States,
Yeah.
especially. They are afraid of carbs.
Yeah. I
Don't know
know.
why, but it's a fat that is actually unnecessary, especially for a guy who's on the androgens, because you
Yeah.
basically don't convert the cholesterol to the sex hormones, because you've actually taken it from the outside, so you don't need it. So it's
Yeah.
and the body has to do something with it. So you can imagine. Yeah,
Just a second. Sorry.
not a
Just
problem.
here.
Not a problem. So let's comes to the carbs, because the carbs is what everyone loves.
Yes.
How many carbs? And I'm assuming you told me as much as it possible.
Yes. Well, that's what I did as much as possible. If you wait. Yes. So I figured myself when I was pushing the most, I was between 800 and 1100 grams of carbs a day.
Okay.
But then you have to drink some of them. You can't eat everything.
Okay. So what about the calorie intake during the week? You tend to go into the route of the carb cycling, for example, like training days, non-training days, high days, or you just keep it simple and it's just training, non-training, or maybe just like a no shake intra on the rest days, but everything stays the same.
No, I figured what worked the best for me to avoid accumulating fat was to find my baseline and then just be like pretty much around the baseline, and then twice a week have additional meals that has different sources of fats and proteins and other nutrients to them. And then I noticed that my weight was increasing, but I didn't have that fat accumulation because I was not constantly in a surplus. So you're just in enough surplus to fill up your glycogen storage, do an intense training, and then be depleted from glycogen. But then you have had a high intensity training for strength training, so the fat burning process for 6 to 8 hours after is much, much higher than if you just would do normal cardio afterwards. So it's better to focus more on the higher intensity on the training. And then instead, of course, then eat those additional meals 2, 3 times a week and try to get that surplus just a few times a week instead of constantly being in surplus. And if you have that identity and you have the GH and have everything that you need, you will be in a state that's protecting the protein or the muscle cells. And as long as you have enough proteins, you will still be able to recomposition some of that fat that you add into muscle throughout the week. So you will always just be adding a little bit fat, you will always add, but you will mainly add just muscle mass.
Let's clear the air here. What is additional meal? Because in people's minds, it's pizza, kebab, and stuff like that. Is it clean meals? But higher.
Homemade clean meal, but has higher fat content. It's different sources. So a good example is like make yourself a homemade pizza with some cheese and lean minced beef, or just a little bit different, but not shit food.
Yeah.
Not something that we know is gonna make our metabolism run lower. We want to keep it as high as possible.
Basically, avoid the processed food and the trans fat, because those are the worst things for your insulin sensitivity. Yeah.
Well, some processed we can handle because we train this much. Our metabolic health is very good.
Yeah, so but processed like cereal, low fat cereal, not like a chocolate.
No, yes. True.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, because for me, for example, bread or a cereal is not shit food.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's just like a normal food, low in fat, but it's just more simpler carbs and maybe less micronutrients dense. Yes. But basically, around the training is like a perfect fit for me. So I am totally fine with that kind of meal. But if someone eats like I said, like a bucket of ice cream, like a Ben and Jerry's, is basically all shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And that's what I mean. When you have to push the calories in an off season to step up to a different class, some of it will be a little bit processed, like bread, because it's impossible to eat that amount of food. It is. And that's why people that's above 130 kilos, they have my deepest respect, because I know how painful it is to eat all that food every single day in and out.
Yeah. Never been in that place, but I dream of being in that place, even if I'm gonna cry after, but just to saw that number on a scale. It's a dream of mine. Okay. What are the biggest mistake that you see that athlete can make in the off season when it comes to the diet and training? Because I think that the off-season mindset is the reason why people are actually not adding size.
I think so. Number one is under eating. That's what most people do wrong, that I see, around myself, under eating, and especially under eating proteins for some reason. I don't know why they do so, but especially women, I noticed. Maybe. Second mistake is going into a pattern and not periodically change up your training with specific goals. And actually the biggest problem is not having a plan. Yeah. Pretty simple. Not having a plan. Going to the gym 5-6 times a week, making all your food, eating all your meals, but not spending 30 minutes a week just writing down what you trained, how you felt, how did that set feel, how is the progressive overload going on the various exercises? Maybe you should deload. All people don't do that 30 minutes, and they spend 15 hours the rest of the week doing everything else.
Yeah.
And that's the 30 minutes that you should have spent instead of maybe 5 of those other hours that you're already spending.
Yeah.
So missing plan and goal.
And I think that's the follow of the routine. It's also because when it comes to the show prep, they're strictly with everything. Everything is to the hour. Yeah. And then in the off season, screw it, like a cardio in the morning. Who pulls in the off season? Screw it. Yeah. Making doing your abs, stuff like that, and it's basically accumulating into a shit off season.
But it's
Yeah.
usually under eating. That's why I said even off season, I always had an alarm on my watch.
So I think in Poland we actually have a totally different problem. People are overeating because they think it's off season, so they are
Ah,
allowed to eat. So I most of guys that comes to me have the problem that they they add additional food to their diets, and then after 4 weeks, 6 weeks of off season, we have to do cutting diet because they are too fat to continue the process. So
but but
it's
but that I already do off season. What I did with myself and I did with clients. If you do like a blast and cruise type, you have 6 weeks periodization with the training, full push, full intensity, and the same thing with the androgens. And you have that 2 week deload with the training. You have maybe 2 more weeks where you have a little bit alternative training, and then you have a new periodization of 6 weeks. So you have 6 weeks on, 4 weeks off, 6 weeks on, and when you do like that, you have to be in a calorie deficiency in those 4 weeks in between, or else you will accumulate fat. And then if you're off season, then it's going to be 3, 4 of these cycles. You will get fat no matter what, or else you will be inhibiting or limiting the amount of muscles that you potentially could have put on.
yeah, but I call it phases, and I kind of did with short mini cuts, like 7 to 10 days. But I was meaning about a full like a cutting diet, like 12 weeks, because they fat
No.
as fuck, like
Ah.
like 20 kilos over.
No, but seriously, the best for off season that I've seen myself and clients over the years is that 6 to 7 weeks surplus. You have that what we talked about. You're in a little bit surplus, a little bit above baseline, but not much, so you don't accumulate that much fat. And you have those additional meals 2, 3 times a week spread out, maybe in front of your quad workout or after your quad workout, depending on what you want to emphasize and make sure it has the nutrients afterwards. So if you do that, you need to when you're backing off your training because you've done 6 weeks heavy push, if you're in a deficiency, then you will get rid of some of the fat, but you're training lighter, so you're not breaking down the muscle tissue to that extent that you did before, and you're also low energetic, so you're keeping the muscle mass and keeping the strength. So you need to set up the training depending on how the periodization that you just came from was, to try to keep the strength, not losing, so that when you start the next periodization, you can start at where you wanted to start initially compared to the last cycle. So that you can't get away. And then of course you have 6 weeks again with surplus, but it's a small surplus. We're not talking. Let's say, for example, for me, my baseline was around 5,006, 5,007 on diet, and then I would just stay still. Nothing happens. So if it did like 6,003, 6,004 as a close to baseline, and then I had those additional meals, I came up to maybe like 7,500, sometimes 8,000 calories 2, 3 times a week. And that was enough for me to add maybe like half a kilo a week for those 6 weeks. So I added maybe 3, 4 kilos of mass. I'm not talking my body weight went more up because of the androgens and everything, but the weight that you have from starting point until 2 weeks after stopping. That's what you got to compare. You got to compare the apple with the apple. So then you actually see how much muscle mass did I maybe accumulate. So of those 2 kilos, 3 kilos, maybe half of it was muscle mass, you know?
We are talking about the additional meals a lot. So I
Yes.
have to ask the question of goal for someone. So what about the cheat meals? Because this is like a clean meal. So for
Yeah.
some, it's not a cheat meals. Are you allowed, you guys, to have a cheat meals?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, how often? And if it is scheduled or if it's how whenever you want it.
Individual,
Okay.
person by person. You have to see how they respond to everything. And some people work better being in a semi deficiency, even off season, not deficiency, but that they're just in that state that they're not losing any muscle, no, fat, but they're not gaining either, but they're getting stronger. If they have like once a week, just eat everything they can, pancakes, they eat everything. I see then maybe, especially for those who have a low fat diet, like 30, 40, 50 grams. If they do that once a week, they probably get enough of the fats to work out through the whole week, and they build still muscle mass, but they're not adding much fat. So it's like a semi-diet approach done in the off season. So that also works. So that maybe fit better for those people that has the psychological need to have, shit food once a week instead. So that's what I mean. You have to find what fits the best for the client.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
But in that case, you still would incorporate that additional meals, or you just replace the method. So rather than, yeah, okay. So we are met in a perfect direction. So I'm not going to ask you about the mini cuts because you basically explained how you're working. So it's like those like a lower androgens and lower intensity periods are actually some sort of mini cuts. It's just like a break for the whole system of the body, so digestive system as well. So probably in a slightly deficit. But what about the cardio in the off season? Are you a fan?
Never, no, never. Because what I've seen is it was a coincidence, actually. I remember this was back in 2013. I had a couple of friends that was competing in the fall, and they were doing morning cardio, after training cardio, and their intensity at the resistance training was fairly, chill, I would say. And being an restricted calorie, they never got to that good condition. And it was so weird because the next summer, 2014, I saw two of the same guys, and they just did like a summer cut. No cardio, they didn't stress anything, and they came into the bone without doing anything. And then I started reading into more and more about how adrenaline stress raises adrenaline, raises cortisol, cortisol inhibits fat loss, etc. And then I went more and more into detail there. And then I saw myself also, because back then I also did cardio. And then I saw, okay, I'm going to give a try. I'm going to try and do a diet without cardio. And I got in better condition because I wasn't stressing. Yes.
But what about the off season?
Off season, if you have a high intensity, if you have a cluster set on deadlift or an SST set on leg press, you are flat out pumped 200 calls for those 5 minutes. Yeah. That's your cardio.
Okay.
That's 10 times. Ask anybody. My brother is actually a cardiologist. Ask any heart doctor or surgeon, whatever. What is the best heart training? High intensity training from resistance, not from cardiovascular running, etc. No. You need to put stress on the heart and lungs. The cardiovascular respiratory system needs to work, and it works the best with high intensity and high load.
Yeah.
So from health perspective, heart health, high intensity training, not cardio. Yeah. Condition also, not cardio. Okay. Low pace cardio.
Yeah, like walking on a treadmill.
Doesn't give anything in my eyes. Having a small afternoon walk to lower cholesterol, relax, get in touch, walk with your dog, walk around in nature. Don't make it cardio. Make it something that's more relaxing. Because in a deficiency, it's so weird how much the cortisol affects the fat loss. It's extreme. I saw this one guy. He had an extremely stressful job. He was eating the same diet, and I was helping him out. He switched position. All of a sudden, he dropped like 1.5 kilos a week. Didn't change anything. Only changed his habits and his routine and the amount of stress.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think we are neglecting a lot. So if it's stress for you to get up at 5 a.m. to do cardio before work, it's counterproductive. It's better than to put in a high intensity HIIT interval for 15 minutes in the middle of the day that fits you better.
It's funny because I hate doing the cardio and I love it at the same time. I can imagine waking up and not go hop on my treadmill just to walk a little bit. But I am not doing an intense cardio. It's like a brief walk. But my pulse is probably like in a higher rate, and my it's like a 120 to 130 probably beats per minute. So it's like it's nothing crazy. Like a little bit faster walk.
But I agree. Yeah. So for you, in your specific case, you should do that. Because to you, that's a routine. It lowers you. It prepares you for the day. It has a cholesterol, a lowering in effect on your just your cortisol, your stress hormone in general. So for you, I would still keep that, yes. But for those people who feel it's stressful to change the routine in order to implement the low pace cardio, then I think it's better to avoid low pace and just add in 2 to 3 times a week, high intensity, or even easier, implement it into your already resistance training that you have throughout the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got both because Lucky loves his crazy sets, like a 10-minute sets, so I don't have to worry about my heart at all.
No, I don't think so either.
So let's get into the probably most important for many people topic, which is PEDs. What
Yes.
is like your favorite PEDs choice for the off season?
Off-season, testosterone anantate, masteron anantate, and anadrol, for example.
Okay.
Then you kind of fulfill all aspects and you get the great hormone profile and you feel pretty
The
good.
anadrol is especially I've known that because I was following your how it's called like a not textbook but
Playbook.
something playbook,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
and you were talking about the mixing the anavar with oh my God, this just came
Mixing
out of
anadrol with masteron.
oh, no, you actually mix it the anadrol with anavar. You're doing like a 1 day on, 1 day off
Ah, yeah,
mix.
like that. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and that worked crazy well. I was trying that on me, on my clients, and that's a crazy way of
That works.
working out into the off season without the health benefits as much because like an anadrol can hit your cholesterol like crazy. So yeah,
Yeah. It
that
lowers the HDL pretty much. Yeah.
yeah, like every alkaline stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. No, you're right. No, but that works great also. But again, individual differences because you have people that's very sensitive to progesterone. So if they use something that's related to progesterone, their prolactin will increase and they will feel like shit, like going semi-nutted the entire day, you know.
yeah,
So for those people, they might need to implement Dostinex or something to lower the
yeah,
prolactin, etc., and those type of things. But again, so you can see on a person how their natural hormone profile is. And what I figured out throughout the years, it's best for the individual to meet their hormone profile as much as possible. So if you see that someone by nature is maybe not that androgenic, but they're more estrogen dominant in some factors in their physique and everything, then most likely they will work the best on a cellular level to keep the estrogen in more of a normal state for the body and also with the testosterone. So you're elevating both the same. And that's sort of what you see with anadrol. Even though anadrol on paper should convert to DHT almost
yeah,
only, we see an elevation in estrogen, estradiol. Like
yeah.
why? Not exactly sure, but if you see those people then and you elevate the estrogen a little bit, you see they work 10 times better and they add much more mass than those people who don't respond that way.
Can I ask why you choose Masteron rather than Primo Blanc, for example?
Value for the buck.
Okay,
Yeah.
get it. And it's probably less like less often faked.
It's never faked.
Yeah, it's too cheap to manufacture
No problem.
rather than Primo. Yeah,
And it has other good properties with respect to the estrogen as well. If you're a little bit sensitive there, you don't want to keep that too high. From let's say
yeah,
1,000 or 1,500 milligrams of testosterone, and you don't want to use Arimedex or Nolvadex or something. The masteronine will actually work and help you on that topic as well. You've probably seen blood works from different clients, and you see that.
yeah. But if I am not keen into that Masteron and DHT lowering the estrogen methods at all. I would rather use just like an AI
Yeah.
because for me it's much healthier than
Yes,
using
that's true.
using a lot of DHT. And I would rather use something like EQ, like Boldenon,
Yes.
than use something like Primable on Masteron. Some of my guys use it, but for most of the time, I would rather go into the natural one of the or the EQ for the off season with
Yeah.
that testosterone. It's always work.
Yeah, it is. And
Yeah,
again, individual differences and preferences.
It's funny because you probably remember that couple years ago, like 10 years ago, when someone heard about the Bolden on is it was called cosmetic drug, and people almost not use it because it's not building a muscle. The same with Masteron, and right now it's like a base, like a anabolic, yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's funny how it's changed.
yeah,
Yeah, but that is how it is, yo. So.
yeah.
GH in the off season. I know that you like using GH, and I am a fan of GH as well. Never come less than 10 IUs a day, to be honest, throughout the year. So I was wondering, what's your opinion about the dosages of the GH in the off season?
I think again, very individual differences. It's like you have with the thyroid hormones, T4 converted to T3, which is the active form T3. Blah, blah. That's where you get like the punch. Same thing with the GH. You want the IGF conversion after the liver to get the punch. So you see some people with the thyroids, for example, they don't have that good conversion from T4 to T3. You see the same thing with people not having that good conversion from GH to IGF-1. So what I see, yes, of course, you have properties from the GH itself that's beneficial to a lot of the tissues and the muscle tissues in the body as well. But for muscle purpose building, then IGF-1 is much more potent. So I would rather try and see how are you responding as a person compared to those people around you. You know, just share experiences. How does it feel when you take 2 IUs or 3 IUs a day, etc. And then just compare. Maybe you figure out that, okay, I don't convert that much. And then it's easier or better to just switch over to IGF-1 most likely, and you get more value for the buck there. And you can use lower dosages, and you're effectively getting more out of it in that cycle that you're using the IGF compared to the GH that you don't maybe have that much effect from. But for those people that's completely normal and converts how it should, I never went above 6 units myself. Never saw the point because then it was just getting more and more, side effect related issues, hands, carpal tunnel, headaches. So again, but we're all different. So I think that needs to be individually adapted to who you are as a person.
Okay. So, but you told me about the converting the IGF, but do you think that systemic IGF has actually is like a good measuring of your reacting to the GH? Because we know that the probably the muscle IGF is the one that's actually impacted the building of the muscle, and the
Correct.
systemic IGF is probably more concerned when it comes to the cancer development and stuff
Yes.
like that. So is it really good like evaluate of using your GH, you think? But probably is if your systemic is high, your muscle is high as well,
Yes.
or it's actually opposite. If it's low, maybe it's because most of the IGF is in your muscle. What do you think?
I dug into that like 2, 3 years ago, and I'm only left with the finger in the air now.
Yeah, same here.
Like,
This is why I asked because it's same here. I was searching throughout the internet a lot and can't find anything that would be probably like a indicated of any direction.
I
To be
haven't.
honest, yeah.
If I say something and I will regret because maybe 1 year from now something comes out.
Well, definitely, yeah.
So
It's
I
always
think,
like that.
but it makes sense that if you systemically have elevated IGF, then of course you have it on a cellular level as well. Like I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to be opposite. But again, there's so much endocrinology is so complex. And I talked to this endocrinologist. He finished school in 2006. So yeah, 18 years ago now. And I went into details and I just had questions to him like what happens between the hormones when they're being secreted from the cell and are in the tissue before it enters the bloodstream. We don't know exactly how those hormones interact with other hormones in the tissue itself. We don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So there's so many things we don't know that, like he said, if you were to say something, better not because we don't know.
Yeah.
Say what you know and can be documented, and the rest just leave and it'll
Basically, keep it
be
safe. Keep it safe.
yes, yes.
So, what about the insulin used in the off season? Are you using only short acting, or you sometimes utilize like a long acting, for example, like Lantus and stuff like that? And do you believe in compounding Lantus with GH, because it's probably going to raise your IGF? Not probably, that's
You will.
definitely, because
Yes.
Lucky are actually making an experiment for
Yes.
himself, so that's for sure. For the systemic IGF. We don't
Yes.
know how about the muscle IGF, because nobody doing a biopsy for
Yeah.
that. But yeah, what do you think about it? What's your approach?
Well, I remember when Lucas did those blood works like 3, 4 years ago, and you saw the elevation was almost double, I think,
Yeah, it
from
was
170 to 330 or something.
in a
I was
couple
quite impressed by
days.
that. Huh?
In couple days, I think.
Yeah, yeah, quite impressive. That was with Lantas only. No, I firmly believe that when we're eating like we're eating, we're burning out our beta cells in the pancreas from producing insulin, and you will get diabetes type 2 after a while. So if you're eating this type of diet, high carb, low fat, high protein, you will develop diabetes type 2 over the years, or at least get to a point where your beta cells are being burnt out and they need a break. So I figured out in periods off season, depending on your fasting blood glucose, you can have a little bit high fasting blood glucose. You add Lantus or Tresiba or something long acting, and you use that for maybe 3 months to keep the values in normal range, and you still eat the same. You take away the long acting insulin, and you see that your values are still good, even 3 months later when you do blood works.
Yeah.
So that just proves that sometimes the pancreas just needs some help to regenerate the beta cells. So insulin definitely has its place to avoid issues later on in life, especially when using GH.
But how do you use it? Because there's a different way of using it. For example, for only the controlling the blood sugar level in the mornings, I would probably do something like a 10 to 15 IUs with the last meal with the guy, yeah.
Yeah,
And for the values of keeping your IGF higher, I would probably incorporate it into the breakfast in
yes,
higher amounts. So, for example, starting with a 30 to 50 IUs and
yeah,
come even to the 150 for some guys if they are eating like a almost 1500 thousand hundred of carbs a
yeah.
day, so they would probably need it. So how's your
Oh
approach?
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. That's pretty simple. Based on the blood glucose, you decide how much you start. So if you start with 20 and you see that your blood glucose is still 5.5 in the morning, you do that, measure 5 days, it's still the same. Okay, add 5 units more. You measure 5 more days, it's still high, five more. And you just continue until you see that, okay, now it's in within a normal range. So once you got to that normal range, let's say that's in something between 30 or 100 IUs a day of the long acting one. And then you need to supplement based on the blood glucose you have 2 hours after your meal, depending on how much insulin fast acting you should use as well,
Yeah.
also. So you can measure. So anything between probably 25 to 100, depending on how much you eat, how big you are, how much help your body needs, how much does the pancreas need help? Sometimes it doesn't need much. And then, of course, depending on the androgenity you have, and of course, how much GH you're using, but I firmly believe that you can safely do anything between 25 to 50 fast acting in addition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably around the training, yes.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Of
Yeah.
course. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Lantus or long-acting insulin
Split.
split in a day?
Majority in the AM, and then a small, maybe five IUs maybe only in the evening.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
just to keep the blood glucose pretty stable. If you have a monitor, you can have on your phone, and then you
Yeah.
can track, and then you can see, okay, I should probably add 5 IUs of Lantus in the evening because my blood glucose is a little bit high during night.
Oh. Do you compare those monitors with your clients sometimes?
Some of them already has diabetes, type
Oh,
1.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's funny that you mentioned because back in 2014, I had my first diabetes client. And I remember specifically that she came from a high fat diet and I put her on a low fat diet. And her insulin usage drastically dropped from using 25 to 30 fast acting IUs a day to six.
Yeah, I saw the recent like test. Probably the Kurt Heavens. All about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they actually make it that way right now with the diabetes patients because it's actually a better way to lower
Yes.
your basically to help your whole metabolism to cut your fats than carbs as they previously thought.
Yes.
So yeah, so everything is changed rapidly. It's crazy. It's very hard to keep up with all those information, especially if you have a holes in your like education right now, and you're
Yeah.
trying to keep it up with the
Yeah.
newest stuff. It's crazy. Yeah,
Well, well, that time in 2014, that happened by accident. I didn't know that that was going to happen, and we saw it happen. And then
yeah,
I saw in the future with a couple other diabetics that I had throughout the years, same thing.
yeah.
You know, they're being the doctors at the hospital tells them to eat high fat diet, low carb, and we see that with the low fat diet, higher carb, they use a fraction of the insulin usage, and their metabolism is better. Their blood glucose throughout the day is much better. I'm not sure why, but I'm not the diabetes doctor.
Maybe the body is just like I don't know how to say it, but it's sticking to the utilizing of the carbohydrates better, like
Probably.
learn how to use the carbs better,
Yeah.
probably, yeah. And the lowering of the fats, which probably majority of the fats was like saturated fats and trans fats
Yeah.
from the burgers.
Probably.
Just packing up with insulin sensitivity.
Yeah.
So how about the estrogen control? How do you like your guys to stay in range or maybe slightly above the range? Or like you said before, it depends on the person. If they are more like a estrogenic type, you like it, keep it higher
They
and
like themselves. You know, they like
feel
themselves
better,
really hard.
feel
Yeah, yeah.
better.
Because if you take those that has like maybe a little bit not super androgen by nature, and you take away completely the estrogen, estradiol, E1, E2, etc. You take away everything. You kill them sexually.
But do you notice that those guys who tend to keep their estrogen a little bit higher actually gain more fats or
Yes,
not exactly?
yes.
Yeah.
Adding more
Okay.
fat, but also have the possibility to add more muscle mass. They have win-win. I think on a cellular level, the estrogen works in favor for them, creating a more anabolic situation on the cellular level with the protein synthesis to
Because
to to
they've
grow.
they've basically have characteristic of a woman, and for a woman, estrogen is pretty anabolic.
And you see that on a lot of women. You see that those women that has a tendency to hold a lot of water and fat in the lower body, they also have a tendency to add a lot more
Yeah,
muscle mass to the lower body.
and it's stronger,
Yes.
basically. Yeah,
Yeah. So there's something to it. Exactly what? Again, I'm not a doctor. I just am nerding like you.
yeah, yeah. But this is why I wanted to speak with you, just because you are like a science, the most true science guys I've known, because
Lucas.
everything you know, everything you know, you've based on speak with people, watching your clients, making the gains by yourself,
Yeah, of course.
helping your woman,
Yes.
because I know that you will work with maybe not the work because that part I don't know, but you have a lot of knowledge for the woman competitors and hormones and stuff like that. So you've basically walked the walk, and this is why I like to talk with guys like you, because those scientifically proved guys are basically just refers to the studies, and it's basically all shit, because like we talked a couple of minutes before, probably in a couple of months we're gonna find a new studies that's basically uh, tells that the previous one was wrong. So
Yeah.
that's yeah,
The problem is also a lot of the studies and stuff, you know, they're done on animals. They're done measuring how much carbohydrates or like glycogen you can store is based on research from fat liver cells on rats, you know, and we transfer it to our bodies, that knowledge. It's not correct. So I think like the majority of what we know is we have a good idea, but we don't have a lot of accurate information actually.
Yeah.
No, but that's why experience is so important, because then we see, well, that worked, but I'm not entirely sure why, but it makes sense that it should work because of this and this. And you try it yourself, you see it works on other people, and it's like, okay, there's something to it, but I can't prove it. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes those it makes sense is actually a wrong pathway, because sometimes body is just so crazy that it's theoretically makes sense, but it's totally opposite in the on the molecular level, and the body just fucks us up.
I know.
Yeah,
But again, that's where you got to
that's the
try.
beauty of it.
That's the beauty. I trained now for 22 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, started when I was 16 and I'm 38.
Oh my
That's
God,
it.
man.
I
That's a
think
lot.
yeah, and like back then in like 2000 when I was 18 and 19, 2019 was the first time I came across cluster, Dante, dog crap,
Of
DC. So
course.
already back then, I was already experimenting and seeing, not understanding why I had such a good neurological adaptation that made me so much stronger if I trained in that specific way. But you see it works, so you apply that to people and clients, and you see that it works on them too. But you can't explain exactly why. But now I can. 20 years later.
Yeah. Did you get those high protein from the Dante? As
Yes,
he was
yes.
probably the first one who
Yeah,
kept the protein extremely high, to the point
yeah.
that you have to almost eat a whole, like a chop of the protein powder a day to just keep up with the intake that he is like a prescribed for the clients. So that was crazy.
But again, this is also like, over 20, 25-year old information.
Yeah, but
It's
but
changed
but but
since.
you, but he actually built those guys as fuck.
Yes, yes.
Those
That
guys are
again, that's why I
huge.
tried it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's
No, no, no. DC works, and DC is just a precursor to Patrick Tor's SST, etc. So Dante started something that a lot of you have the Mio reps, you have the cluster, you have SS, all those things originated from Dante. So we owe him that.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely. And he probably is the father of the hard work, I
I
would
think so.
say.
Yeah.
Because even back then when the those guys like a Mentor and stuff like that, they are not actually training that hard
No.
compared to the Dante and those West Post sets,
Yeah.
Widows Maker and stuff like that, because that shit was crazy. It's some people ask me on the Q and A's and stuff like that, what do I think about the DC training? And actually it's hard to explain them that this is probably the best training ever, but it's the worst training ever for you, just because
Yeah.
you're never gonna keep up with the intensity that Dante have in the mind writing
Possible.
this plan. You probably have to, I don't know, he would have to stand right behind you and just keep the loaded gun in front of your head to
Yeah.
to make you work as hard as he did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that he was just mentally ill in the good way.
But I also firmly believe that, and I've seen that myself, and me and mine, Una talked about it several times also, is that as the years progresses, the neurological adaptation, the pathway itself from the neurons to the
Oh
muscle
yeah,
cell activating gets so much stronger and better. It's like you're going from a single road to a eight lane highway to that muscle. So the amount of muscle cells you can activate when you train for 20 years in one set compared to what you were capable of when you were 18 years old, 20 years before, is really not the same. So that's why I said the DC Dante's program, it's probably one of the best programs you can do on a person that's trained 2-3 years normal conventional strength training, and he can do that for maybe 2-3 years, maybe reduce the volume and intensity a little bit and periodically change some things that individually adapted. But for a person that's trained for 20 years, is already 100 and like your size, I don't think it's the best option without a
yeah,
lot of modifications.
yeah. I
But for
I,
new
I agree,
beginners,
agree with
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's the true beginner. 3 years
yes,
of training. That's the true beginner.
Yeah.
I think that before the 3 years of training is, I don't know how to say it, it's like a baby steps
You
first.
just got to get
You just
into it.
learn your body.
Yeah.
It's just the time to learn your body, and then you actually can say that you're working out. Yeah,
Yeah. No, I
yeah.
think the first 3 years is just
When
like
it
you
comes when it comes to my chest, I would say it took me almost 12 years to be a beginner because this is the first time this rebound is the first time I've actually feel my chest, and I am proud of every chest workout, to be
yeah,
honest. So this is the
good.
first time. So it took me 12 years.
Next time.
Yeah, I'm learning crazy fast. Yeah.
I think it took me 10 years to hit back.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. I don't think I hit back properly before I was 26. No, I'm not. It took 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel a little bit better now. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Thank
it
you.
takes time because certain muscle groups, because of your anatomy, is not taking the load as it should.
Yeah.
Maybe your tricep and front shoulder was activating before. The pathway should normally be activating chest, front shoulder, tricep. But with you, maybe because of for some reason, you activate tricep, front shoulder, and chest in the end.
Yeah.
So then it's difficult to get that contact and push.
Definitely. Definitely. And actually, Lucky was the one who's changing up my training so much that is basically forced me to feel my chest right
Yes.
now because
Yeah.
I it's structured that way that you basically either you feel your chest or you just die under the bar. So it's only two options. Well, how many times you have left? How much
Uh,
time?
well, I should already. How much we have left? Maybe we can
Two
finish.
questions. Two questions.
But then we just
Because
finish up because
yeah,
there's
because this
some.
is the transition into the prep mode. So let's say we've done a crazy job when it comes to my off season,
Yeah.
and I'm how much over the stage weight I should weight right now. So we started with a 102 kilo. That says the off season took us how many?
Well,
6, 8, 10 months.
realistically, you can add maybe 5 kilo stage weight in 1 year.
Okay, so my weight should be around after the off season 120, 122 kilos.
I would say so because you have to. So if the 5 kilo is stage weight, you have to add on at least 5 kilos of water,
Yeah,
and
and
you have to
glycogen
add
and stuff like that.
yeah, and you have to add like at least 2 to 5 kilos of fat.
Yeah.
So for 5 kilo muscle mass, you usually add 15 kilos in the off season.
Okay.
Personal experience, but not everybody is the same. Some people maybe had their off-season peak weight with not that much water retention, and then they have a lot more water retention on their deficiency in diet because they're finally then using something high energenic like trenbolone, etc. So it depends, and then the nitrogen balance goes up, and they keep more weight, and they have more intramuscular water. So the weight is not representing exactly how much kilo you've added. So that's what
Of
we said
course.
before. You have to compare the apple with an apple. How much did you weigh with the body fat, etc., before start, and how much did you weigh in the body fat after, and then compare and see.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
would say 5 kilos on your level, 5, 6 kilos without. Of course, you can always do 10 kilo 1 year, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Like it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I went from competing first time in 2008, and I competed every year. I did 15 seasons. I only had 1 year break, but I did double season some seasons, like spring and fall. So then you do 7 shows in a year, etc.
And probably that was the best way to gain the weights. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Compete
Those
every year.
rebounds. Those
Compete
rebounds.
every year. Because you have the psychological effect that you're always on a mission. You're always pushing yourself. You always know that I have to be better than last year. I have to put effort. And then you automatically change your way of thinking. You start being more careful with the plan. You start being more careful what you eat. Your off season become your on season. So
Yeah.
I don't believe in that off season. For me and my clients and Una also, it's the same all year round. It's just changes, but it's the same diet in one way. You
Yeah.
know,
That's how it's supposed to be. And I've always think that you are a bodybuilder 365 days a year. So
Yes.
I never get that why people think on off that there is a podcast called No Switch Podcast, and I like it. I like the name a lot because there is no switch off. There is no
No.
off seasons. It's
No.
just slightly increase of the calories. So just food raises up, but everything
Yeah.
stays the same. Still doing
Yeah.
your cardio, you're posing your everything because you have to. You are a
Yeah.
competitor. So yeah.
Exactly.
But let me ask that question finally.
Yes.
So I finished the bulking period, and
Yes.
what now? We doing some sort of deload health days before
Yes.
the competition?
Yes. 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 So let's say, depending on your condition, but if your condition is pretty good and you compete every year, you don't need to be on that long diet. But if you competed 2 years ago, the fat has been stored for so long time on those trouble areas that you need to be lean for several weeks. You need to be stage ready, at least like 5, 6 weeks to get those shredded glutes and lower back. But
Yeah.
if you compete every year, it's a different story. If you compete twice a year, even if you try that 1 year, you would see even better benefit. It's like Una. She competed 1 year, I think it was 19. Yeah, 19. We both competed in Portugal Pro in July. Short break, cleaned up, ate a little bit more, and then did a show again in November. Best condition, best fullness, best everything. So that just proves my point that you need to have the skin needs to be for a long period of time in a good state.
Okay.
That's why it's no point going fat off season. You're
Yeah.
ruining insulin sensitivity. You're ruining the testosterone to DHT conversion. You're not utilizing the nutrients that well because your insulin sensitivity is worse. There's nothing to gain from adding fat, basically, in my view. So yeah, of course. So if you start in a decent condition, you can start 12 weeks out. Then you need to have a cleanup phase for at least 6 to 8 weeks before.
Okay. What do you mean about a cleanup phase?
Cleanup phase
Cutting my
completely,
androgens in half
completely off
or
everything.
ooh, off.
Everything. Maybe some ACG and some Alvarex and Clomid to kickstart everything, but it's just mainly or you can just use ACG all the time and synthetically stimulate your own production because you're not going to be off that long that you can actually regain, but you're still going to produce your own by manipulating your body to produce your own. And you feel great if you do that ACG for 8 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if you tried, but you feel pretty normal.
Once in my life, and other than that, I never come off.
No. No, but you should. So there's different theories on that. Some people say that you should be at least, 8 to 12 weeks completely off a year, and that I support 100%. Body needs a break. And if you're going to do this for many years, like I competed 15 years in a row, you have to think health.
But what about if you're on 365 days a year? Of course, we lowered and raised it in a different phases, but basically on. And your lab works, it's perfect.
No problem. Keep as is.
Yeah, because you see, Lucky and I basically because I followed Lucky and stole all his knowledge from him even before I worked with him, basically. So I've always thought that you supposed to uh, taking care of your health to the point that you never have to come off. Because
Well,
I don't
that's the
believe
best.
in blasting crews. Because
No.
blasting for those guys is basically fucking your body up to the point you have to do a break
Yeah.
just to have like a 4 to 6 to sometimes 8 weeks off. You barely healed up and you fuck it up again. Those guys are doing that. You know that,
Well,
yes?
that's one way to look at it, but yeah, that's the extreme. Like something in between
But
is
people think
unfortunate.
that way. But people, you know that. They
I
do it
know.
like a totally off, and then 2 grams of tests, 1.5 grams of I don't know deca, 500 milligrams of tren, and let's do the bulking for 6 to 8 weeks, and then just 4 weeks of come on. They are not even cleared out because the esters are too long. But who cares?
No, but
Oh,
if
my
you
HDL raised it up 2 points. Great. Come on, come on again.
No. But no. So that's what I mean. If let's say your HDL should be really bad, let's say it's 0.2 to 0.5. No matter what you do, you're not going to be able to bring that up most likely without taking everything away for quite some time.
But is it really a point to doing it?
Well,
If your HDL is not fairly high,
depending on the triglyceride,
and yeah, and triglyceride is low, and
it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
cholesterol is low
Doesn't matter.
because of your low fat diet during the whole year. You're
Yeah.
not eating like a processed shit.
No.
So basically that you're fine.
Yeah. No. The cholesterols are misunderstood. The only thing we should care about is calcification.
Yeah. But
Like I
those
said,
you probably should the scan for that, not only the blood work.
yeah,
So
you need to do a CT scan for that to
yeah,
do calcification score. But in general, like as long as the triglyceride is low and the HDL is low, it doesn't matter because like the HDL is like the broom and the
yeah,
triglycerides is what. And keep in mind, triglycerides is not the ones that's accumulating in the blood vessels or in the arteries or anything. It's just creating favorable condition for clogging and buildup of the trans fat that you have floating in the body. So it's not actually triglycerides that is making the clots, but it's precursing making ideal situations to create clots.
yeah,
But if you have then, of course, the HDL and the triglyceride is low, you don't have that issue. And most likely then your calcification score is low. If you have added K2, coenzyme Q10, etc., the calcium stays where it should. And you don't
yeah.
have
Of course,
calcification buildup in your, and of course, avoiding shitty food and processed food and sugars. Because
that's
then
the
you
main
know
thing. That's the main thing.
that's the main thing. That's the main plaque building cause in arteries and veins. It's the
Yeah,
process of sugar.
I don't think that people are actually uh, really know how much the diet is impacted their health, because I saw that people still doing the shits like desserts with lots of shit in that and stuff like that because the macros are fit and stuff like that. And if you're natural, that's okay. You can
Yeah,
do whatever you want. But if you're on a hormones, you have to keep everything basics, to be honest. Don't
yeah,
get
to
me
be
wrong.
careful.
I've used a lot of sauces, especially right now. Like I probably add 200 to 300 calories of sauces right now. Probably, if Luke gonna hear that, it's gonna kill me. No, but he knows about it probably because I share my foods everywhere. But other than that, everything stays clean. You
Yes.
don't eat shit. You're
No.
avoiding a trans fat. You're avoiding the processed sugars as much as you can and stuff like that. Like I mean, not like processed sugar, like you eat a jam or with a sugar. That's okay around the training. But I mean like chocolates and stuff like that, like a shitty, very bad for you foods.
It doesn't matter if the amount we're so metabolically healthy from training how we do. And if our diet is 90% on point, if you have that 10%, if you eat like 50 grams of chocolate every day, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, but I'm doing that, and I'm doing 100% dark chocolate, and it's
Yes.
delicious and
Yes.
it's very healthy. You
Yes.
don't have any shit in that. Even though it's like a, saturated fat a little bit, those
It's
are
not
good
that bad.
fats.
Yes.
Yeah,
No. I firmly believe so too. I have like, and that's 70% chocolate. If you look at it, break it down. Then you have like 21 or 22 grams of sugar per 100 grams. That means it's only like 10 grams of
of
fructose.
course. Yeah,
What the hell is 10 grams of fructose doesn't even get to my liver. It's being taken up by the digestive system. It doesn't even get to my bloodstream like that.
it's actually improved the uptake of your. Yeah,
Exactly. But that's
it's
the thing,
actually better.
and that's what's wrong with social media. They're painting an incorrect picture of reality, and it's
Yeah,
fucking annoying.
I know that. I know that. But we never gonna fix that. So we
No,
just can't provide a videos like that, just
yeah,
to maybe clear some air around the heads of some guys who are actually open-minded and wanted to think by themselves.
yes,
Because I've always keep it like I wanted to share your knowledge, and if some people believe in it, it's okay. If don't, it's okay as
yeah,
well. Yeah, so for example, I am not going to agree ever with the PCT stuffs for a bodybuilders, but that's okay. It works
Yeah.
for you and it works for your clients. You're doing a great job, and that's eventually what's mean. Nobody going to ask you on the stage, "Are you doing your PCT this year?"
Yeah, nobody.
No, fuck this. Yeah.
Oh,
So thank you, Ole. We're going to cut it here just because we
okay.
are right before coming into competition prep. So we're going to deal with it in the next episode. And I know I kept you for longer that we are decided to make the podcast. So thank you for taking your
Thanks for
time.
having.
And if anyone sticks with us to this time, just come down below in the description. You find all the information how to contact with the OE. Let's give him a subscribe, follows, and stuff like that on the every social media. I'm gonna pin down below. And thank you for being with us, considering subscribing, comments, sharing, and stuff like that. And we're gonna see each other in the next one. So. Thank you and
You too.
keep a good health.
Cheers. All the best. Thank you.